I wanted to talk to you about a mindset trick, okay? For those of you that don't know me, I struggled with anxiety for literally 30 years. And so do our 3 children. They've all struggled with anxiety at various moments. And my daughter used to have this word for it. It's called the what if loop. That when you get trapped in your mind, you start thinking about what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this goes wrong? What if I fail and somebody critiques me? What if this person judges me? What if that happens? What if they say this and I don't know what to say? What if my friends judge me? What if they think I'm weird? What if they think I'm silly? You can get trapped spinning what if thoughts all the time, okay? And so I want to give you a super simple trick that you can use to interrupt the what if loop. And it comes from both the research that I've done about having a high five attitude and empowering and encouraging yourself. And the reason why having a high five attitude is so important is because when you believe in yourself and your ability to face anything, when you believe in your ability through your attitude and your actions to have a positive impact on anything that you're dealing with in life, that's the secret to success. It doesn't remove the obstacles. It doesn't change the circumstances that you're dealing with. It changes you and your ability to face those circumstances and tap into the resilience and the courage and the confidence and the strength that is in you that is waiting to help you. That's what a high five attitude is. It's realistic optimism. Oh, gosh, okay, there's a gentleman walking in front of our car. Okay. So I was talking with Jenny, who's got her camera aimed at me. Jenny Maloney, if you need a phenomenal photographer. Hussein, who is my favorite person, sorry, Tev, to drive. And our COO and my fabulous sister-in-law, Christine. So we were sitting here talking. Jenny literally decided 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, about a month ago.
About a month ago. That where she was living was sucking her soul dry.
Mm-hmm.
She'd been thinking about it and thinking about it. How many of you have been thinking about, is this the right place for me to live? Should I move? Should I try somewhere new? Even if it's just like, I don't like this apartment or this neighborhood or my roommates. Have you experienced this? I have been experiencing this for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Every time I would take off and land in a new city, I would allow my mind to wander. Could I live here? Could I live here? Is it Austin, Texas? Is it San Diego? Is it Nashville? You know, is it Portland, Maine? I even considered Portland, Maine.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's cool. So she literally decided 4 weeks ago to honor that feeling inside of her. And the second that you started honoring that feeling, like, maybe I should move, even though my family lives here, even though people are going to be upset, maybe we need a change. When you feel depleted, when you feel like every morning you wake up and you don't want to high five your life, that's a f***ing signal. That means you got to dig deep and figure out what you really want. And you got to do some soul searching, and you got to find your strength and your courage to face and be honest with yourself about what's not working and make a change. So that's exactly what Jenny did. But when you start to get honest with yourself that you're not happy with your life, any aspect of it, you don't want to high five that relationship. You don't want to high five your friend group. You don't want to high five where you live. You don't want to high five that job. That's when the storm kicks in your mind. Because then you go, well, what if I'm wrong? And what if I don't have new friends? And what if it doesn't work? And what if this? And what if that? And what if the other thing? What if I don't sell my house? What if my kids don't like the new school? What are some other things that you had about it?
What if I don't find somewhere to live? What if my house doesn't sell? What if I'm making a big mistake?
Yeah,
You know,
what if I'm making a big mistake?
And I was terrified.
Terrified.
And I thought that was my gut trying to tell me something, but no, any big change is freaking terrifying.
Yes, terrifying. Just expect that, okay? So if you don't high five your life right now, that's all the sign that you need to change. Then your mind is going to kick into what if mode to keep you paralyzed where you are, because your mind does not want you to change. It thinks change is scary. This is where you're going to use this little high five attitude flip. And I'm going to let Jenny tell it to you. What is the flip? Just tell them what that flip is. Instead of going, what if this is a mistake? What if this goes wrong? What if it doesn't work out? What do you say instead?
What if everything does work out?
What if everything works out?
Mm-hmm. And it's so simple, but it's so profound.
What? Can you imagine if you went through life thinking, what if it works out for me? What if I make this big change and I actually love my new life? What if I start exercising and I love it? What if I decide to move and it all works out for me? What if I start this side business and it works out? Imagine placing a bet on yourself. That is how you have a high five attitude. You place a bet on yourself, on your dreams, on what you want, and it can be as simple as swatting away that bullshit. What if it fails? What if it doesn't work? What if my friends judge me? What if I'm unhappy? Look, there are very few things that are, I know, I'm really red. It's because I'm sort of having a hot flash right now. I keep it very real. There's no filter that I can have. I'm 53 years old. This is the kind of that happens to me. But what if, all those what ifs, you don't know if they're true or not. Are they serving you? What if it doesn't work? What if that? What if the other thing? What if, ooh, scaredy cat, paralyzed? Do you like that? How about you flip it? How about you get a high five attitude on? What if it all works out for me? What if it's hard in the beginning? And then a month from now, I look up and go, holy shit, this was the best decision I ever made. What if quitting your job is the scariest thing, but it all works out for you? What if ending that toxic relationship makes you feel scared and you dread being alone again? But what if 2 months from now, when you invest in building back a relationship with yourself, you can look in the mirror and you go, wow, it's all working out for me. That was exactly what needed to happen. What if the heartbreak that you're dealing with or the pain that you're dealing with, what if it's all just a dot on the map of your life connecting you to something amazing? What if it's preparing you for something? What if it all works out for you? You know, betting against yourself makes you feel miserable. Staying in situations that you don't want to high five, that make you feel depleted, it's the reason why you're not happy and fulfilled. I want you to start putting a bet on you, on your intuition, on your happiness, on what your heart and soul are screaming at you to do. If you can't high five every aspect of your life, I want you to stand in front of that mirror and start to get honest with yourself. I want you to get a piece of paper out and put a pen in your hand and start writing down what the do you want? What does a high five life look like to you? And you know what's interesting about using the term a high five life? You know exactly what that means. I don't even have to explain it. It's a life where every day, even on the hard days, you still want to wake up and high five what's happening. You're still waking up surrounded by people and playing a game that's worth playing to you. It's personal to you. And I'm here to tell you, you start to develop the daily habits of encouraging yourself. What if it all works out? What if this is actually the best decision I've ever made? What if it's really difficult and going through this is going to make me a better version of myself? What if 6 months from now, after I make this change, I'm going to look in the mirror and it's not that you're not going to recognize yourself. You ready? You're actually going to recognize yourself. The you that's in there, the one that you're ignoring and criticizing. What if it all works out for you? That's my message for you today. I want you to take on that high five attitude. What if it all works out for you? I'm sitting here high-fiving you every step of the way because I believe that something amazing is happening in your life. I sense something extraordinary is about to happen for you. And when you start to leverage a high-five attitude, what if it works out? What if this is the best decision I've ever made? A really difficult one. But what if this is the best decision I've ever made? You know, I love to say that you're one decision away from a different life. So make the decision away to swat away those negative thoughts and bring up that high five attitude. What if it all works out for me? Believe. Anchor down in hope and optimism and faith and in celebration of yourself and your ability to pivot your life anytime you choose. That's what's available to you. The second you decide to just get that negative shit out of your mind and adopt that high five attitude, because I do believe that I sense something incredible, extraordinary is going to happen for you. But first, you got to start to say, what if it works out for me? What if this is the best decision I've ever made? What if I place a bet on myself for a change? Wouldn't that be cool? I think it would be. Hey, it's Mel Robbins. I'll get you right back to that video. But first, you got to know I have a 3-part free training program. It's called The Reset. Seriously, it's free. I coach you. Amazing. If you're tired of having self-doubt hold you back, let Mel Robbins inspire and empower you. There's a workbook. It's incredible. The Reset. Write down this URL or hit pause and jump in because the link is in the caption below. All right, you in? Good. I can't wait to see you in The Reset. And now, back to the video.
And the psychology supports that. Look at all the books written about habits, whether it's B.J. Fogg, Tiny Habits, or James Clear, or Stephen Covey, or Charles Duhigg. They all talk about making these trim tab adjustments in their lives. You're right on. Mel, I've just dedicated my 30-year career to the leadership development industry, and my first book was called Management Mess to Leadership Success, 30 Challenges to Become the Leader You Would Follow. And it did extraordinarily well, mainly because, much like you, okay, not 2 million copies, but much like you, my book touched a nerve in terms of sort of the underbelly of leadership and how hard leadership is, and that it's important to own your mess, because then you can make it safe for others to own theirs and teach through your mistakes. I would argue that you are one of the lead thought leaders that has ushered in the safety of having the conversation around anxiety and trauma and your challenges, and really helping to make vulnerability and actual parenting, spousal, friend, leadership, competency. You talk frequently and openly on your social media and in your books about your own struggle with anxiety and panic disorders, and I don't mean to put you on the spot for that, but is there anything you would follow up with that would help our audience of millions of people around the world that perhaps have a colleague or a spouse or their boss or an employee, child, that perhaps is facing some of those issues, or they themselves as well, that would maybe give everybody a light and some inspiration this morning?
Yeah, of course. So I would tackle it in 2 different ways. I'd tackle it in 2 different ways when you're dealing with somebody at work, especially if you're the manager or the leader at work, and somebody in your personal life. And the reason why I say that is because I think it's really important to be compassionate and understanding and supportive of, everybody in your life. But I'm not out to turn leaders and managers or anybody into a therapist. Because the fact of the matter is, when somebody's struggling, whether they're struggling with anxiety or depression, or they're struggling with issues related to trauma or PTSD, or heck, they're just struggling because we're still living through a global pandemic, and every single human being's nervous system right now has been switched into a state of fight or flight. And so, everybody, after 2 years of this, Scott, is living in a condition in their bodies that human beings are not designed to live in. We all feel emotionally taxed. We all feel the fatigue from being on Zoom conference calls all day long. We all feel the giant, are you kidding me? As we see the virus continue to mutate and closings and this and that. And so at this moment, what leaders need to know is your team is emotionally, physically, and spiritually gassed. What they need from you is they need more appreciation. They need to be given a little bit more trust. And what I'm going to say about that, and I've been hammering this in speeches. I've been hammering this because I believe that every single company had the exact same response when the pandemic hit. And it is a very typical response because it's a response that tracks to the normal anxiety response. So as we unpack anxiety, Scott, I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things, but I promise we will end up in a place where there's lots of takeaway. So anxiety, first and foremost, everybody, it's a very important thing to have in life. Yes, you heard Mel Robbins say that. Anxiety is really important because all that anxiety is an internal alarm system that is hardwired in your nervous system. And that alarm system has one job. The alarm system called anxiety has the job of making you pay attention. That's it. There is some kind of threat, some kind of uncertainty. When anxiety races through your body, You come alive and you go into a state of hyperfocus. Your nervous system switches into your sympathetic nervous system. You immediately go on edge. Your spidey senses come up. Your prefrontal cortex engages. Your heart starts to race. All of this, by the way, tied to evolution to keep you safe. Anxiety is a good thing when there is an actual threat. Yeah. So, for example, let's say, Scott, that you and I are driving down the road. And we're chatting up a storm and we're driving, to go do a speech or whatever. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a semi truck cuts right into our lane. And you have to swerve, right, to get out of the way. As that semi truck, Scott, cuts into our lane, what do you feel in your body?
A rush of adrenaline, fear for my life. I need to take immediate control over my safety because that driver doesn't know I'm alive or he wouldn't have cut in my lane.
Yeah, like immediately anxiety rips through your body, and anxiety is serving a purpose. It's sounding the alarm so that you stop talking to me and you pay attention. And all of a sudden your brain takes over, you swerve without even thinking about it, and your heart races, and all the blood runs to your major organs so that you can go into a state of hyperfocus. The reason why people feel nervous or anxious or excited before a test or before a speech is because you're going into a state of hyperfocus. Anxiety, that feeling in your body, is now making you align with what you're about to do so you can focus on it and perform. In the example that I just gave you, anxiety served a purpose. And here's what's interesting. As the truck pulls away and you kind of pull back into your lane, what happens in your body now that the truck is gone and we're driving down the road safely?
In my body or my wife's body?
In your body.
Well, in my body, I would, that anxiety probably stays for a little while, not for an hour, but probably, 45 seconds or so as I begin to calm down and kind of put it into context, and we're safe, we're alive, it's not going to happen again probably immediately. So I probably recover pretty quickly, but there's a lingering effect.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about the 45 seconds, because it is less than 90 seconds that most people switch from one emotional state to the other when there's intellectual context. So your body starts to slow down and it goes from the on-edge state, alert state, into what's called the parasympathetic state, which is your kind of rest and relax state, in about 90 seconds, because your brain sees the truck leave and your brain goes, oh, no threat. The problem for people today, and this is true of everybody on your team, is that we have been living in a heightened state of uncertainty. And every single person on the planet, their nervous system right now is either flipped into the fight or flight mode of feeling on edge, or it's like a trigger, immediately flips into it. And so the normal things that somebody wouldn't stress out, they're super stressed out. And this is important to understand, because I want you to, as a leader, to think about, first, let's talk about work. Assume that most people are at the end of their rope. They're trying the best that they can. They are burning the candle at both ends. They're having a hard time focusing and concentrating. And they're feeling uncertain and on edge. Because even if their work life is good, there's something going on with their kids at college. There's something going on with their kids in the high school. There's something going on with somebody in their family. And, the spike in this sense of anxiety, the spike that we're seeing in terms of people's mental health, is extraordinary. And I'm sure you're hearing the same thing from corporations that I'm hearing, which is that the number one concern that people have right now at the highest level in every single company, whether they're publicly traded or they're a small family business, is the well-being of their employees. And so one thing that you can do is, number one, you can encourage people to take time off. Number two, you can consciously, as a leader, make a strategic and intentional decision to move out of the mode that your company has been in for probably 2 years, because there are 3 phases to this pandemic that has impacted every corporation on the planet and every leader on the planet. Phase number 1 was life as it used to be, right? Because when the pandemic first hit, it was sort of like, oh my gosh, what's changing about life as it used to be? What life as it used to be? We're going to go back to the way life used to be. Phase number 2 was full on crisis. Oh my gosh, we're in this.
Yeah.
And what you saw is you saw an anxiety response from every single company on the planet because we had to. Everything got turned upside down. The rules got rewritten overnight. Everybody had to pivot and to innovate and to switch and to innovate. Like, it was incredible. And there was so much amazingness that came out of it. There's going to be, when we look back on this period, this is going to be one of the most rapid periods of innovation and disruption in a very positive way when it comes to business operations, the way that people work, like all kinds of stuff. But one of the disruptions that has been horrible for people is that companies immediately jumped to nonstop video conference calls. And what has happened for human beings who are working hybrid or working remote is that people feel like they need to always be online. And there are lots of companies that also still have a policy 2 years later that your camera is required to be on. This is a horrible thing to be doing to people. And the reason why it's a horrible thing to be doing to people is, number one, it communicates mistrust, which makes somebody who's already stressed out feel even worse. But number two, based on the brain science, here's what we know. If you're on a video conference call and you're staring at yourself, having to stare at yourself activates this part of your brain, Scott. When the prefrontal cortex is engaged, the rate at which you drain the fuel in your brain increases dramatically. The reason why it is so difficult for everybody to be productive right now, for everybody to focus, the reason why people feel more anxious, the reason why people feel more distracted, the reason why people feel like, my gosh, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I feel like I need 3 martinis and a nap. Like I have 4 more hours for the rest of the day or 10. The reason is because you are having to work in an environment that is triggering stress and anxiety and being on edge. Staring at yourself all day on camera is draining the fuel in your brain. And companies reacted so like panic mode that they haven't pulled back yet and stepped into phase 3 of the pandemic, which is, this is the new reality. Let's stop pretending there is some sort of milestone that is out in the future that's going to solve all this. And let's get strategic and let's get intentional about how we're going to work, because everything in the company can't be important or else nothing is. And every meeting can't be 50 people on a Zoom call because nobody can get work done. And we need to go back to getting intentional and strategic about what's important and going back to the basics of making sure people's weekly jobs are aligned with what matters. And we need to allow people and trust them to get their work done. That's one thing that you can do as a leader. Less Zoom calls, more appreciation, and cameras off. That's going to help people a ton when it comes to anxiety at work. The other thing that will help people a ton is triple down on appreciation. What I've figured out in researching the high five habit and having 145,000 people from 91 countries go through a 5-day online challenge that I led about the high five habit. In 5 days, Scott, not a single person reported that this high five habit didn't work. And what I've learned in researching the power of appreciation and developing habits of encouragement is that the most motivating force on the planet is to feel appreciated, to feel like somebody sees you and hears you and actually appreciates you. And I know that you talk about this a lot. People, and we're talking about the Great Resignation, right? And companies make the mistake of thinking that people are leaving organizations because they're looking for better compensation. That's not true. People leave organizations. There was a huge McKinsey study that proved this recently. They leave organizations because they don't feel valued or appreciated, and they don't feel like they belong. And so this should be a giant red flag for every leader out there. You've got the Great Resignation. You've got people really starting to think about what they value and what matters to them. You've got a hybrid work environment where it's going to take more intentionality to make people feel like they belong and to make sure that they feel appreciated. And so you've got to make sure that this is priority number one as you head into this next year, that the focus is on how do I make sure that people's work is getting recognized, that people feel visible, and that I am pointing out all the things they're doing right instead of harping on the thing that they're doing wrong. That is something that you can do that goes way beyond the corporate programs that people put in place. It's the basic blocking and tackling of making sure that everybody that reports to you feels appreciated by you. And it takes work. It takes a lot of work to build that as a muscle as a leader. This is how you manifest properly, by the way. Right here. You have to visualize in your mind writing the check and feeling the pain in your legs of uncertainty. You have to visualize in your mind sitting in that plane seat, flying to a conference, feeling the pit in your stomach, being worried about whether or not anyone's going to take you seriously because there's all these big podcasters there. You need to feel your chest contract and squeeze in as you walk up to somebody that you deeply admire and you start a conversation, or you walk up to an event organizer and say, I'd like to apply to be on a panel next year. How do I do that? And your chest gets really tight because you feel like you don't belong there because you don't have the numbers yet, or whatever your stupid story is. When you picture that in your mind and you feel the negative sensation in your body, you are doing resistance training. This is how you align your mind, body, and spirit to not resist the hard stuff. Here's a cool fact about your brain. Your brain doesn't know the difference between you actually spending the money, buying the plane ticket, getting on the plane and flying to that event, or you imagining it in your mind. And when you run through the hard things that you're avoiding in your mind and you allow yourself to feel the negative sensation in your body, you are training and mentally rehearsing the exact same way Olympic athletes do with the 9 sports psychologists that the U.S. Olympic team has to help our athletes prepare. You are mentally rehearsing before the actual event, so that your mind and your body are trained to anticipate and push right on through all the stuff that's scary because you've already rehearsed it. That's how you use manifesting to help you do the work to get what you want.
Wow. I'm so grateful that we kind of brought that up and that you helped walk me through this.
What did you get out of that?
Well, I became aware of not only what I need to do, but like what's the fear that's attached to it.
What is the fear?
Well, the fear is always going to be uncertainty or scarcity, because I think the one thing that's been beneficial to me in my life is that I've always had my back against the wall, from being somebody who was a convicted felon in jail, not growing up with a ton of money, that sort of thing, where I've always been forced to just hustle, work, where I'm used to this kind of situation. But on the flip side, the negative is I'm so used to being stressed because I grew up in a stressful environment. I put myself in a stressful environment from selling drugs and doing drugs for a majority of my life when I was younger, so that a lot of times now I've had to become aware of when I'm creating more stress around something that's a good thing instead of something that I would have seen back in the day as something that was bad or whatever.
Can I unpack that?
Sure.
So you just said that you realize that you're used to having your back up against the wall, that having been a kid that grew up in a very chaotic household, who then turned to dealing drugs, who then got arrested and was convicted as a felon and served time behind bars, all of which I'm very familiar with because I used to be a public defender in Manhattan. So I have not served time, but I have represented people accused of crimes and who have committed crimes and who have served time for a large part of my career. And one of the things that I want to point out is that you were attracted to the chaos of selling drugs because it's all you knew as a kid in your home and it felt familiar. And this is why it can be really challenging to break old patterns. And that's because patterns are familiar. And if they're familiar, they just repeat automatically without you even realizing it. And so here you are now. How many years have you been out of jail?
Gosh, so December 26th just marked 13 years.
So 13 years. On December 26th, it was 13 years since you were released from federal prison. Amazing.
No, or county jail, yeah, but.
Okay, well, county jail.
Yeah.
It's still a felony conviction.
Yep.
13 years, you're behind bars. You have turned your entire life around, but there is one pattern that still runs your life. And the pattern that runs your life is chaos. And if you don't identify that chaos and friction and feeling on edge is what you're so familiar with, if you don't identify that now and recognize all the places in your business where you are creating chaos, creating friction, and putting yourself on edge, that pattern will keep you from living into your full potential. And so here's what I would do. I would make a list of every aspect of your daily life or business that creates chaos, that causes friction internally, or leaves you feeling on edge. And then I would do the work this year to put systems, people, process in place so that you create new patterns. I can relate to this so profoundly, not because I've served time behind bars, but because, like so many people, having stored trauma from being molested as a kid, when I was 9 years old, in my nervous system, I have lived my whole life from the age of 9 till about 46 when I first started understanding that this was stored trauma and understanding that my anxiety was largely due to the fact that when that happened to me at the age of 9, my nervous system went from calm and cool and resting to on edge, stressed out, fight or flight. And it probably never flipped off of that. My dominant pattern, Doug, is being busy and being on the run and being on the move, because if I can be 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody else, I'm going to be safe. And so the thing that doesn't work in my life is that my whole business, up until very recently, was organized around a pattern that's Mel's running to catch a plane. Mel's running to do this. Mel's on the move. And I hated how it felt, but I had no idea how to stop being so busy and stop being on the run, because I equated being on the run with safety and with control. And it's the opposite. You see, these patterns that we develop when we're a kid made us feel safe when we were a kid because they were familiar. But now that they're an adult, they're screwing up our lives. And so I have gone through the same exercise very recently. What are all the things in my business and that I'm doing in my day-to-day life that I hate? What are the things that cause friction? Where is this behavior making me miserable? And now I am going to work with removing all the friction, removing all the busyness. And I'm going to tell you first of all, what are you getting out of me sharing this?
Well, I'm very thankful because my audience is going to totally relate to this. And that's kind of why I shared what I shared, because there's so many people that struggle with this very thing. And I was very fortunate that I was in a therapist's office probably, I don't remember, 6 or 7 years ago. And I was stressed and I had nothing to be stressed about. I was making good money. I was writing books, and I had just written my first book, and my therapist was like, what was your childhood like? I was like, my parents got divorced. And I just started explaining what happened. She's like, you grew up in chaos. So like you said, your nervous system is going to seek out more chaos. And then it began to make sense, because she was like, you have a certain level of homeostasis that your body is used to, and your body is always going to revert back to that. You have to create a new normal. And I was fortunate that I learned, I mean, I'm still aware of it. And I think just through, I'm aware of it, and I still make mistakes based on it just because I'm still working through a lot of that. But there's a lot of people that, as you're saying that, they never figure it out, because they're like, they just accept the fact they're always going to be stressed.
You don't have to be. Like, I think the place, if you want to heal, if you want to be happier, the place to really focus all your work on is regulating your nervous system. And there's lots of ways you can do it. You can do it through cold exposure therapy, by climbing into an ice bath and learning how to breathe yourself through the discomfort for 30 seconds to a minute. You can do it through EMDR. You can do it through guided psychedelic therapies, with a licensed therapist. But you're not going to talk yourself out of a nervous system response. You can also put your hands on your heart. This is something I write about in the High Five Habit, and press on your vagus nerve and say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved, which will bring you back into your body, and it'll flip the switch between your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system back into the parasympathetic nervous system. And so there are things you can do, but understand that these patterns get triggered at an emotional nervous system level before your brain catches up. And so the reason why, for example, when I asked you, hey, visualize yourself writing a check that's scary, and you said, I feel that in my legs, that's your nervous system. That's where your stored tension, trauma, and stress activates. It can be different for everybody. And so, back to the advice I was giving you, you have to write down all the areas where you are unknowingly creating chaos. And I remember this person said something to me when I first got involved in the speaking business, and my career started to take off. And he said, Mel, you better say yes to every speech you can get, because speakers on the corporate circuit get hot and then they disappear. And this is a fad. And that triggered that, like, I got to go, 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 go. And so for 5 years, I said yes to absolutely everything I possibly could, because my husband and I were in a horrendous financial situation and we desperately needed the money. And I ran myself into the ground, not because I was being intentional, but because this pattern of being busy kicked into full gear, but it was driven by fear. It was driven by fear. And I believe that as much work as you have done on yourself, turning your whole life around and now serving so many people and making a huge difference in building this business, if you dig deep, what drives the fear of spending the money and investing yourself is a deeper fear.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And it's forcing me, or just thinking about it now, it's forcing me to just to reinforce that the work never stops. Like, there's always going to be something that comes up. And I think a lot of people think of healing as they climb this mountain, they put a stake in the ground, they're like, yep, that's it, I'm done. And it's not what happens. And I think that's why a lot of people, they stay stuck and they develop this fixed mindset, because they don't have the humility to look in the mirror and say, like, I need to improve this. This area of my life needs some healing. I need to do some work. And we touched on, obviously, some things that I need to work on personally, and both personally and professionally. But I guess my question back to you is, So the High Five Habit's been out now for several months. We just got through the holidays. What's been like something recently since the book came out where you've had to give yourself a high five and pick yourself back up after you were in a negative self-talk loop, you were feeling low about yourself? Was there something? And if so, what was it?
It's basically every day.
Yeah.
You just said you've written the High Five Habit. It's a wildly successful book. Is there a moment that you have to pick yourself back up? The reason why I start every day with a high five in the mirror as part of my morning routine, and I do it like I've repeated it so many times, I don't even think about it because it's just like brushing my teeth. I brush my teeth. I wouldn't even think about starting my day without brushing my teeth. I wouldn't think about starting my day without high-fiving myself in the mirror and experiencing the benefit neurologically and chemically to what it does. I need one every day. Life is fucking hard. I mean, just this week, I have one daughter who has started a new job after graduating from college, having had 2 years of her college experience imploded. And she is starting remote at a large tech company. She is profoundly capable, and she's a nervous wreck. And that makes me feel sad and distracted and upset for her. We have another daughter who is a junior in college and which basically means she's had 6 months of a traditional college experience, who just got word that school is now pushed back a week. It's starting remote, that Rush is online, just things that seem trivial, but it's her whole world. And so her trying to grapple with how to make sense of the ever-changing world that we live in. I was supposed to fly down and see my parents who are on the panhandle of Florida this weekend. And given the surge that we're in the middle of, I think I need to push this thing off because there's connections involved and I don't want to spend the weekend in the airport. And it's a lot of money to fly down there right now. And not that I don't have it, but I'm kind of feeling like, God, I don't want to disappoint my mom, but I really don't want to spend 2 days in an airport. And what do I do? And so it's like, Mel, come on, make the phone call. Every single day, life is going to throw situations, emotions, distractions, stuff at you that you can't control. And the whole game is how you support yourself in responding to it. And so I have developed the skill of being so in tune with my nervous system. And when I'm kind of in my body and feeling comfortable in my own skin, and when I am triggered and I go on edge. And the second I feel myself go on edge, I have a skill of putting myself in pause, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and checking in with myself and getting aware of what is going on. And let's take the example of why, the high five helped this morning of feeling on edge about calling my parents, who we haven't seen since end of September, and saying, I think we should push this off 3 weeks. It's my mother's birthday. I deeply miss them. I want to see them. And I know in my heart the right decision is to push this off a couple weeks. And yet I still feel the emotional trigger. Am I going to disappoint somebody? Does that mean I'm a bad daughter? Am I a selfish jerk for doing this? All of which could either settle in and put me on edge all day, or I could recognize that's what happens and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. I'm going to do what works and what feels right for me. I know I'm a good daughter. And I know that this is the right decision. And my mom and dad can have their reaction. And when I see them 3 weeks from now, when there are less flight delays and the weather is better and I have more time to spend with them, we won't even remember the moment I made the phone call and said. So every single day, you have to practice these skills because life is always changing. Like, that's why I like thinking about it like skills. You know, writing words on a piece of paper is a skill. You use it every day. Scrolling through your phone is a skill. You use it and practice it every single day. Drinking a cup of water is a skill. You use it and practice every single day. Self-awareness is a skill. Recognizing when you're on edge is a skill. Knowing how to come and get back into your body and become aware of what's triggering you and then work through it and choose how to respond based on your values, that's a skill. And in life, you need to draw upon, strengthen, and practice these types of skills every single day.
So beautifully said. And thank you so much for opening up and sharing that, because I think that's something that a lot of people, especially the last few years, have struggled with. It's people pleasing, right? Like being afraid of doing the right thing for themselves because they fear it's going to hurt somebody else. And then also regulating yourself and not creating more stress in your life, which then, you and I have both struggled with coping with substances, to help numb anxiety, stress, and that's not good either. And there's a lot of people that do that. So if you were to say you had like one or two things other than the 5-second rule that when you're feeling emotionally charged, you give yourself the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you do something to kind of get your body back to some sort of stability, like what would those things be?
Okay, so in a moment of stress, what are the top tools that you can use? I can think of a number of them. You already mentioned the first one. So the first one is the 5-second rule. Simply counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, interrupts your nervous system response and it interrupts the racing thoughts. And it gives you just a moment where you can choose what you do next. And so you could count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and take an action to respond. Or what I often do is I count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to stop the racing in my mind and to stop my heart from taking off in terms of flooding my body, with adrenaline and cortisol and all this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I put myself in pause. I take a deep breath and I just do nothing for a minute. Deciding not to react is a powerful way to react. Gathering yourself is a power move. And so that's number one. The second thing that you can do in moments where you get triggered or stressed or you feel the emotional wave come on, get outside, put your phone in your back pocket, preferably turn it off, and take a walk. Simply getting outside for 10 minutes will slow your breathing down. It will raise your gaze and attention on something other than the whatever situation, train wreck that just happened, or the phone call you need to make, or the text you just got. A 10-minute walk outside will work wonders in settling your mind and your body. A third thing that you can do is you can get out a blank piece of paper and you can do what I call a brain dump. Get all that crap that you're thinking out of your mind and just write and write and write, just as if you are barfing after a big night of drinking. Just barf it all out on a piece of paper. Get it out of your head. And as you stop writing, ask yourself anything else and just keep writing. And it'll just be a mishmash of stuff, but eventually you'll get it out of your head and your body and you will calm down. A fourth thing that you can do, if you have a bathtub, you can draw a bath, and soaking in a hot tub will stimulate your vagus nerve and it will settle your body. A fifth thing that you could do is you can run a cold shower and step into a cold shower. Let me tell you something. I don't care how horrible that text was that your ex just sent you. If you step into a cold shower, it is so shocking that the only thing that your brain and your nervous system will pay attention to is the cold shower. Get in there and stand in there for 30 seconds to a minute and breathe through it. And something miraculous will happen. You will literally feel a flood wash over your body. Those are 5 free things that you can do that will help you take control in a moment where life has triggered you and made you scared or anxious or freaked out or whatever. Being stuck is one of the most universal feelings of the human experience, and nobody understands what it is.
What is it?
Oh, it's amazing when you hear this. It's like, pew. So remember how we've talked about how the human beings have this crazy amount of natural intelligence wired into us. And inside your body, we've talked about one of the signals, anxiety. Anxiety is a signal that means pay attention. That's why you go into fight or flight. You're in an alert mode, okay? That's all it is. It's a signal, an alarm system. And your body has a sophisticated system of signals and alarms. And they're all tied to fundamental needs. Anxiety is tied to your fundamental need for safety. That's why it's a signal. Let's talk about your most important fundamental needs. Let's go right back to Psychology 101, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need food or else you die. So when you need food, what is the signal that your body sends you?
Hunger.
When you need water, what is the signal?
Thirst.
When you need air, you catching your breath. When you need rest, what do you feel?
I'm tired.
When you need connection, what do you feel?
Lonely.
Human beings are designed to grow. When you stop growing, what do you feel? Stuck.
Yeah. I was going to say stagnant, but I guess stuck is, yeah.
Or stagnant.
Yeah.
Or still.
Trapped, I guess, is, yeah.
Yeah. Feeling stuck is a signal that you've stopped growing. That's it. And when most people feel stuck, since they don't understand that it's tied to a fundamental need for growth, we believe it's an existential crisis and we blow up our lives. For most human beings, what actually will get you feeling like you're not stuck is having something in the future that you're looking forward to. Or taking a class where you're learning something, or changing a routine so that you try a new class at the gym. Learning anything gets you back in touch with a fundamental need. It makes you start to feel like things are moving. And from that place of feeling a little bit more empowered, you'll be able to make better decisions about what big things need to change in your life.
And is that, you would also describe that as a moment where your life has like an absence of purpose? I think about various examples, Olympians that come back from the Olympics and they're like 80% chance of depression after they've, you know, and then I think about people who have, lost purpose in their lives for whatever reason, been fired from their jobs or whatever, or people that are in jobs that are, absent of purpose completely, that feeling of being stuck. And then we talked also about the importance of goals and ambitions going forward. When humans don't have that forward ambition or that thing to look forward to in the future, and their current situation lacks purpose, they become very psychologically disorientated, would be the way I'd describe it.
I have a different take on purpose. I think everybody's purpose is exactly the same.
What is that?
I think your purpose is to share your true self, to be fully seen. And for the Olympian, when you are training and you're in that arena, that is an experience of being seen. And for most people that are lacking purpose, they feel profoundly invisible. And being seen fundamentally comes back to whether or not you even see yourself. And when you start to feel empowered and you start to see yourself and meet you where you are, what happens is every day that you're able to stand with yourself, to accept where you are, to give yourself the compassion, to give yourself the support and the love and the respect and the worthiness that you deserve, you're going to go out into the world and share more of yourself. That Olympic athlete is sharing more of themselves. And so I think our purpose in life is to come back home to ourselves, to reconnect with ourselves, and to empower ourselves to go back out into the world and share our stories and share our experiences and share our full selves with the rest of the world. Worries, stress, or anxiety about money affects your life. And honestly, if you're watching this, you should put a thumbs up in the comments, because worries, stress, and anxiety about money, it impacts everybody's life. In fact, in a recent survey, I don't have it here in front of me, but in a recent survey, I read that, that I think it was done by Forbes, 87% of people that were asked said that they feel some level of stress about money worries. Now, I'm going to talk to you about how to deal with money worries, but I want to draw a line in the sand real quick about what kind of money worries I'm talking about and what kind I'm not. If you are in a situation right now that is acute, you have no money, you are unemployed, and you've run out of money. You work for the government and you haven't gotten your paycheck last week, and it doesn't look like you're getting one this week. And frankly, it's totally unacceptable that this is happening. And you're starting to panic because you are running out of money. And like most people, at least in the United States, you're one paycheck away from not being able to pay your bills. That was me 10 years ago. If that's you, you don't have money worries, you have a money problem. And the only thing that will solve the very real problem that you have is taking action and being super proactive, even though you're scared right now and you're frustrated right now, being super proactive to get the help that you need, to get the services that you need. If you need to go to a food pantry, do not let pride get in your way. One of the things that happens when people have money problems is that they are so confronted by the problem and the reality of the situation that they avoid dealing with it, because facing it head on and realizing that you got to call family members for help right now because it's that scary. You got to go to the daycare center and say, hey, you know I'm good for the money. I know you're a small business, but my God, until I get paid next, can you cut me some slack and let my daughter still go to school at daycare here so that I can show up at work at the airport or show up at the military? So, you need to face it head on if you have money problems, okay? Got it? Good, because that's the only way that money problems actually get fixed, is when you get proactive and instead of being scared and avoiding the situation, you hit it head on and you have those hard conversations with yourself and you start reaching out and asking for help. In this training, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about the money anxiety that most of us struggle with. And that's the habit that you have, your default mode of thinking about money that stresses you out. You have a job, you're getting a paycheck, you're making the ends meet, and you worry about it all the time. You go into work and you want to ask for a raise, but you're so worried about your worth that you convince yourself you don't deserve the money, so you don't ask for it. That it's your mental relationship to money itself and how you feel about yourself and your own self-worth, and how that mindset impacts how you behave and how you think about money. That is what we're talking about in this training. And so there's a couple things that I want to call your attention to. Number one, and I will tell you what videos I want you to watch. Any thinking pattern that you have that doesn't serve you can be changed. And that's what you're learning in Mindset Reset. And if you have a negative thinking pattern about money, that is a thinking pattern that you want to change. Because when you change how you think about money, whether or not you deserve it, whether or not if you work hard you'll make it, whether or not it's going to turn out for you, whether or not you're disciplined about what you spend your money on, and whether or not you save it. If you change how you think about money, you'll make a hell of a lot more of it. I'm going to tell you that right now. And so if there's an area of your life that you really want to take a deliberate look at, it's how does money trigger you to think? And how does your personal psychology and your default mindset trigger you to think about money and whether or not you deserve it? And whether, I know so many of you think, how many of you think I'm not good with money? I had that story for a long time. I'm just not good with money. And that default way of thinking, it's not surprising you're taking mindset reset. If you think you're not good about money, guess what? You won't be. If you think it, you will behave consistently with it. That's how this works, which is why we want to change how you think so that you change how you behave. So here's a couple things about your mindset related to money. It's like your mindset related to anything else. It's just that money is a huge trigger for most of us. There's two kinds of worries, and we've already covered this, and I'm going to refer you back to the video about this. You're going to go back to videos 13 and video 14 on this, okay? And so there's only two kinds of worries. Video 13, video 14. I want you to look at this. Two kinds of worries. There's productive worrying and there's destructive worrying. Too many of you worry about money and it is destructive. Your worries about money make you spend money that you don't have. Your worries about money talk you into doing things that are not smart with money. Your worries about money have you undervalue what you think you should be paid. Your worries about money keep you trapped in your head instead of doing things that will make you more money. And so we got to change this, because I guarantee you that the reason why you have a destructive habit of worrying about money has something to do with how you were trained to think about money or think about yourself from your past. So again, if you worry about money and it empowers you to make more of it and it's not making you unhealthy to worry about it, fantastic. That's a productive form of worrying, because worrying can be productive if it signals and triggers you to take action to fix a particular problem. Worrying is destructive if it makes you feel bad about yourself, if it makes you do things that are contrary to your goals, if it makes you stressed out. And I bet that you have the destructive kind of worrying. So now let's go a little bit deeper. What do you do if you've got a habit of having a destructive pattern of worrying about money, of thinking you're unworthy, of telling yourself you're not successful, of telling yourself you're not going to make it, of buying things that you can't afford, but you buy it as a way to validate yourself because you feel bad about yourself? What I want you to do is I want you to go back and repeat some of the exercises that we did in the very beginning of the program. So if you haven't signed up for Mindset Reset, no problem. There's no race. You haven't fallen behind. There's plenty of time. You can do this at your pace. All of the videos are available for free. They're all on our YouTube channel. They're all on our Facebook pages. And if you go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset, you will get an email from us that has amazingly helpful links that will give you the playlist of everything. It's like, boom, just like that. So go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset. If you go to videos 1 through 8, you will see the foundational training that we did on the science of thinking, on your default mindset, on worrying, on all kinds of really important skills and science for you to understand. And it's super easy. And you really need to go watch this stuff. The second thing is that from video 13 on, we covered the morning routine from 9 until 11. That's it. No, we did a lot longer. 9 until video 12. We did a ton of stuff on the morning routine and on the journaling method that I use. You can revisit 9 through 12 if you want to check that out. But really, we started picking up on worrying and anxiety and the connection between those two things at video 13. So if money is something you worry about, you're going to look at video 13 and video 14. And I'm going to explain the assignments, but this is going to help you go back and identify why you are triggered by money. You see, something happened to you. And in video 14, We talk a lot about how you identify the triggers that cause you to do things that you want to stop doing. And I want to say something very quickly about triggers and about the work that you're doing. You are not fixing yourself, okay? When you do a mindset reset, you're not fixing yourself because you, my friend, are not broken. You are exactly where you need to be right now. You have all of the lessons from your life, from all the great things, all the failures, everything. You're exactly where you need to be right now in your life in order to get to the next level that you want to get to. We're not fixing you. We're fixing patterns from your past that no longer serve you right now and will not help you get to your future. So what we want to fix and change is we want to fix and change the patterns that get triggered by your past that aren't going to help you get to your future. And so if you look at video 13 and you look at video 14, I walk you through some exercises where you go through your day and you identify all the things that trigger you related to, and in this case, it's going to be money. So what I want you to do today or tomorrow, whenever you have time, is I want you to wake up after you do your morning routine, and I want you to go through your day and notice all day long what triggers you to worry or make yourself wrong or think about in a negative way money. What is it? Is it the price of coffee and telling yourself you shouldn't do it? Is it looking at your paycheck? Is it checking your bank balance? Is it looking at things that, catching yourself looking at things you can't afford? What is it that triggers you? Is it seeing other people in expensive clothing and making yourself wrong? What about money triggers you? And then you're going to ask yourself the question that I already taught you to ask in videos 13 and 14. And that question is, don't say what's wrong with me about money. Why can't I make money? Don't ask yourself those questions, which are basically like punching yourself in the face. Ask yourself this question. What happened to me to make me believe that I'm not worth making money? What happened to me that made me believe that I'm not smart enough to be successful? What happened to me that makes me believe that I need to buy something in order to feel good about myself? Because there is a connection between something that happened to you and the association that it triggered with money. And we got to get to that pattern because that's the pattern that we need to fix. And when you start to work on the pattern, so being deliberate about not buying stuff that you don't need and coming up with something else that you're going to do instead to make yourself feel good. Being deliberate about making a plan to go ask for that raise or making a plan every day to work on your multi-level marketing business or your side hustle project so that every day, instead of having yourself be triggered by money and the lack of money and the fact that you haven't made a sale yet, that you're actually in action, making things happen so that you do make the money. This is how you change the patterns around money that are triggered by your negative belief system and triggered by your self-doubt. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.